Are you about to book a small ship luxury all-inclusive cruise and you're trying to decide between Regent Seven Seas Cruises and Silversea Cruises? If so, let me help break down what the difference is and hopefully help you figure out what's the best option for you. Hi there, travel lovers. It's your trusted cruise and Tauck tour and Africa safari expert Shawn Power here. And today I want to talk about Regent Seven Seas Cruises versus Silversea Cruises. Now, if you're a cruise lover like me, you know that these cruise lines are at the, I consider them the cream of the crop of the cruising industry. In the description underneath this video, I'll put in a link to another video where I break down the entire cruise industry. And as I mentioned there, Silversea, Regent, Explorer, Seabourn, Crystal, these are pretty much the cream of the crop of the cruise industry because they include pretty much everything on board. They do have some of the fewest, amount of guests on board. And just, very, not pretentious, but very luxurious. I mean, you don't want for anything when you're on these ships. So Regent and Silversea have always been, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and I've booked almost $100 million worth of sales for my clients. So, I have thousands of clients, and most of my clientele are booking, upper premium and luxury lines. So I book these lines again and again. And by far in the small ship category, Regent and Silversea are the two who I book the most. And the reason why I think that's been for most of these years is because they both included shore excursions in every port. And at least most of my clients, they want excursions included everywhere they go. I also have a lot of people who, travel with Tauck on Tauck tours and river cruises and stuff because they literally include every single excursion. And a lot of people want that. Now, neither Regent nor Silversea included every single excursion, but everywhere you went, they were including, 5 to 6 or even more excursions. Some you'd pay extra for, really high-end stuff. But the point was it was a very, very inclusive trip. Now, Silversea recently made some changes, which is why I want to kind of talk about this today. So first off, let's talk about the onboard experience with Regent versus Silversea. I've personally traveled on both of these lines, several times each. And it's very similar, or it always has been, at least in my experience. When you're on board, the food is fabulous. The service is, second to none. Because there's usually one, I think it's something like 1.25 or one crew member for every 1.25 guests. There's a lot of crew on board. So I remember the first time I think Regent I went on many years ago, and I remember saying, can you tell me where the washroom is? And when I was on Carnival and all those cruise lines years before, they'd be like, over there or whatever. Whereas the Regent person walked me to the washroom and said, here it is, sir. And it was just really cool. So the point is you get a lot more attention. They almost all know your names. And impeccable service, at least in my experience. So the service is wonderful. Like I said, the food is great. Really, excellent choices where you go to restaurants and they still have things like lobster on board and crab that you just don't see on the big ships anymore unless you pay big, extra money for it. But of course, those things are all included. The Silversea and Regent, they both include all the drinks on board. We're not talking house liquors and stuff like in the Caribbean, at the all-inclusives. We're talking, nice brand labels that we all know. Great wines, beers, whatever you want, it's all included. Wi-Fi is included, tips for all the staff. So pretty much everything's included. A couple of little different things between those two lines when it comes to onboard. Silversea actually gives every person on board butler service. And that's really nice. It may sound pretentious, but it's not, at least in my experience. They're going to help you with things like, if you need laundry done, they'll kind of work that out for you. If you have room service, they're going to come on in and put the white cloth down and you help you have a nice meal while maybe you're watching a movie, having a bottle of wine in the room, which is a nice treat now and then. If you need to make changes at the restaurants, some of the reservation times, they'll do that. So Silversea gives that to everybody on board, which is nice. Now, Regent, you've got to book a penthouse or higher to get that. So, Silversea definitely has a little bit of an edge there when it comes to onboard. But then there's things that Regent does a little bit better on board as well, in my experience. One thing is with the meals that Silversea has 3 or 4 restaurants that you actually pay more for, which is very unusual in the small ship category. Now, they do it because these are small restaurants. I think one of them I was in one time, it could only fit like 20 people. So they can't fit everyone. So money has to be the entry barrier or the barrier to entry. So, it makes sense. But the thing is, Regent doesn't have any of that. When I was on board Regent last, they had an amazing Asian specialty restaurant and a French specialty restaurant, a steakhouse, and you're not going to pay a dime extra. And I've never paid a dime for any food on Regent. But overall, these are extremely, extremely, extremely inclusive cruise lines when you're on the ship. Again, on Regent, there was really almost nothing I could pay extra for. On, Silversea, a little bit of dining. So they're pretty close that way. But what's changed recently is that, again, like I said earlier, they both used to always include a bunch of excursions at the ports. But Silversea recently made some changes where they're not doing that anymore. Now, I won't get into all the small details here. I'll put a video underneath because I made a total video about what the changes were. But the bottom line is Silversea is now just giving a shore excursion credit. So instead of saying we're going to give you excursions at every port, they're going to give you, in my mind, a small credit. It might pay for excursions at about half the ports during the cruise, but then you're going to have to pay more, which adds to the price. So speaking of price, I wrote some numbers down here because I kind of want to just give you some real examples to see, what makes sense. Because years ago, or I shouldn't say years ago, up until 2 weeks ago, when people would say, who should I go with, Regent or Silversea? I said, let's look at the numbers. And if it's really close, I personally like a Regent a little bit more, and I'll tell you why at the end. There's a couple of things that I enjoy more there, and I'll explain that. But the thing is that if it was very close, I used to say you almost can't go wrong. But now if the price is very close, I actually think Regent's going to be the better deal because of the off-the-ship inclusions. Now, of course, if you find a Silversea cruise that's, 1,000 or 2,000 less, it might make sense. But again, I was just looking at some examples, and personally, with them dropping the excursions in every port, I don't think they drop their prices enough. That's just from, what I can tell. And again, I've been doing this a long time. I mean, again, almost $100 million in sales. I have literally thousands of clients. So, I see all these deals and I kind of know what a good deal is. And I don't think they've dropped their prices enough with taking out all those excursions. So let me give you an example here. I'm just going to do a week-long Alaska cruise. Lots of people go to Alaska. It's a week-long, simple numbers to go over here. So basically, I was looking at a July, 2026 cruise for each of these cruise lines. Looking at a veranda room. I mean, on the Regent ship, every room is a veranda. There's no choice. Silversea, they do have some just ocean view rooms and stuff, but I looked at the veranda as well. So the price on Silversea was $65.80 per person, 6580. On Regent, $67.99. So it looks pretty close. Now Regent's about, $219 more, but overall, I mean, that's, pennies when you're talking, this kind of money. So the point is that it looks very similar, looks almost equal. But think about it now, because unlike, going on Regent and Silversea, this past year or years ago, you would have excursions included at every port with both. That's no longer with Silversea. So at Silversea, at their lower price, they're just giving you a $400 per person shore excursion credit. So if you look at Alaska, there's 4 ports on both of these itineraries with Regent and Silversea. Let's call it about $200 per person on average for excursions. No doubt there's lots of excursions that are more, but I find, if you break it down over a week or two, 200 is a fairly, reasonable number to use. So if there's 4 ports with Silversea and they give you a $400 excursion credit, basically, let's say you buy $800 of excursions, you get 400 included, you got to pay another 400. So now that 400 adds to Silversea's initial price of $65.80, and they're up to $69.80. Now it's hundreds of dollars more to go on Silversea versus Regent. Again, remember I mentioned the dining. When I go on board a cruise, I'm going to every dining restaurant, and that's that because I just love to dine. It's one of my favorite things. So I think on Silversea, I added up. I think it would be like a few $100s a person to go to all of them. So again, now all of a sudden you might be up to, $73, $74, maybe even $7,500 on Silversea. So now all of a sudden it's like $700 or $800 difference. So I guess the point of this video is that you can't just now look at a Silversea and a Regent price anymore and consider it equal, because it's just not anymore. So you've really got to look at what the credit is, how much you're going to spend on excursions, and you got to add that to Silversea. Whereas with Regent, you may not have to worry about that. Of course, with Regent, you might do higher excursions, like the $500-$600 ones if you go dog sledding or taking a helicopter or whatever it is. But if you're just doing, we'll call them the more basic ones, you won't have any extra expenses on Regent. You will on Silversea, so it gets a bit more complicated. So basically, as always, if you're my client, I'm going to help you break it down and, help you decide what's the better deal. And of course, this doesn't change anything to do with the perks that you get from me. If you're a client of mine, with these companies, you're usually going to get hundreds of dollars of free onboard spending money, or sometimes they even have an exclusive discount depending. Lots of you as well have booked directly with these companies and moved your booking to me afterwards so you can get those perks. That doesn't change. But again, what does change is, this excursions versus, they don't include them anymore with Silversea. So the other thing too that, let's say everything was equal, just, last couple of things I like to throw out there. I get this question again and again and again. This is why I got to bring it up, because everyone's always like, well, what's the dress code like on both? And on Silversea, for one, they don't allow you to wear jeans. And a lot of people like me like to wear, I'm not talking like ripped jeans or, light faded jeans. I'm talking like a nice pair of dark blue jeans with nice dress shoes, collared shirt. It looks really nice. We see that all the time at restaurants in town, and, it's a very common thing that people wear. but you can't wear that on Silversea, no jeans at all. And also on a lot of the cruises, depending on how many nights, they actually make you wear a sport coat. And a lot of my clients just don't want to do that. On Regent, no sport coat is required. Certainly, if you want to dress up, you certainly can, but the point is they're not forcing you. And the other thing is that they do allow you to wear the dark jeans with the, nice shoes and the collar shirt kind of thing. So again, a couple of things to keep in mind. When you see the prices, don't just consider them apples to apples anymore. I'll help you break it down. Again, if you're working with me, if not, working with your own agent or whoever, just make sure you closely look at what your bottom line is going to be with Silversea rather than just that upfront price. And again, you got to say to yourself as well, hey, am I okay with the little bit, dressier dress code on Silversea, or do I like the more casual on Regent? So hopefully that gives you enough info to figure out, is Regent better for you? Is Silversea better for you? Beyond that, any questions at all, leave a comment on my YouTube channel here. Go to my website at shawnpower.com and ask me questions through there, and I'll do my best to help you break it down to further if you need to. Beyond that, if you want to subscribe here to go ahead and hear what I'm saying about on the next video, go ahead and do that. Beyond that, I look forward to chatting with you again soon. I hope you got some value here today, and we'll talk to you in the next video. All the best. Have a great day. Bye-bye.